Poker is not gambling. I just want to throw that out there right now, because I think poker has got a bit of a bad rep thanks to like how people portray it in Hollywood. Take some of the biggest poker movies or poker scenes that you've seen of all time, right? Casino Royale, gotta be one of the craziest poker scenes where they all throw millions and millions and millions into the pot. And you know, if you don't know poker, it's a good dramatic scene. But then if you do know poker, you are just sort of screaming because you're like, why are you playing that hand? And okay, it's not as bad as, for example, there's that one with Justin Timberlake, In Time. I don't know if you've seen that one, but that is the craziest poker scene I've seen. And Justin Timberlake, they all have like this thing inside them which helps them live, and they're basically playing for their life. And he's there playing the most ridiculous hand, won't go into all the details of it, but he is literally gambling his life away. You know that phrase that they say? He is literally gambling his life away because he's there with this tiny, teeny percentage of potentially winning. And he's like, yeah, I call, I stay in the pot, and you know, just hoping that his one card comes up and hits. And obviously it's Hollywood, so it hits. But people are just sort of looking at it thinking, this is so dumb. That's literally you gambling your life away. The problem is that so much of this stuff happens in the media that people consider poker players to be idiots. They're just gambling and they get themselves into financial trouble. And of course there are people like that, and you know, it can happen, but poker shouldn't be gambling. Poker is a game of strategy. Take poker players' favorite film of all time, Rounders, right? Matt Damon makes a good point saying, how can it be gambling if the same players win over and over again? Which they do, right? So it's like the best poker players in the world are always the ones winning. If it really was gambling and it really was luck, then they wouldn't keep winning all the time. So there has to be elements of skill in it, and I believe it's a strategy game. I believe that poker is as much gambling as running a business is. If you think about it, there are so many correlations to it, but it is a mixture of obviously taking risks, which is the gambling element, and strategy. So I'm going to talk to you today about how I think that playing poker is a lot like running a business, and how the fact that I started learning poker has completely changed the way I do business for the better. So let's take a look at how playing poker is a lot like running a business. So in poker, you have some cards in your hand. They are basically your assets, and what they're worth depends on how well you utilize those assets and obviously what other people have. So your job is to leverage those assets to try and get more money. Sound familiar? And your competitors are also doing the same thing. They're all sitting there. You don't know what their assets are, but they are also going to try and leverage their assets, as in their cards in their hands, to be able to try and, you know, get more money, adding more chips in the pot, and do better with business. And generally, if you've got more capital, i.e. a bigger stack, then you're probably going to have more power, more negotiating power, more bullying power. Just, you know, you're probably going to be in a better position to start off with, just like with any business. So if it was just a simple case of comparing your assets with your competitors, it would be a very simple game. But the problem is your competitors love to misrepresent exactly what they've got. Most of the time to come out stronger than they actually have. That's in business. If you go on social media, do you not just see everyone bragging about how great their life is and how successful they're being at business, and they're winning all these clients and they're earning all this money? That is them misrepresenting their hand. It is happening all the time, not just in poker and in business. But also then you've got your competitors, but then you've got the market too. In poker, you have I'm talking about Texas Hold'em. That's the one that I usually play. Every variant's a little bit different, but essentially you have a board, community cards that everyone plays with. And that's basically the market. And those change all the time. So 1 minute you could be sitting there with the best hand, with the best product, the best service. You could be thinking you are top of your game. The market's going great for you, everything's aligning, and you're like, I am number one in my field, fantastic. Another card comes down and crashes all that down. And that's what the market does. It's so unpredictable, and it could just change with one flip of a card. And obviously you've still got your competitors pretending that they are doing really, really well no matter what cards come up, and it's your job to try and deduce what's really happening. It's confusing. but it is a strategy game. So let's talk about when another card comes down and you're trying to bet to win that pot. To me, this is much like a pitch process. I've been running a creative agency for over a decade now, and I go into pitch for new business all the time. Happens in other different industries too, so just related to whatever you're doing. But think about it. Your opponent is trying to win this pot, i.e. trying to win this business. They're gonna come in and act like they are the best person to take this job. They're the best person to carry out whatever you're looking for. Even if they know you're better in every way, they're still gonna misrepresent themselves because they wanna win that pot. And your job is to sit there and assess, am I actually better than them? How do I show that I'm better than them? Or like, do I just walk away from this and maybe they are the right people for the job and actually it's not worth my time and resources? Now, that's exactly what you have to do every single time that you're faced with a bet. You're looking at this bet and you're thinking, right, the size of this pot is pretty big. You have to assess whether the bet that you have to put in, the extra money, which is probably time and effort and everything and money into like pitching and doing stuff, you know, because they might raise the stakes and be like, okay, well, we want to do this. We're going to lower our prices. We're going to offer you more to the client. And you're sitting there going, can I do that? Is it worth that time, effort, and extra costs that I'm going to be putting in to win this pot? And every time a bet happens, that's essentially what you have to doing. So it's this risk and reward analysis that you have to be doing consistently when you're playing poker, just like when you're in business. So say if you do decide to invest your time and effort and money, and you go toe to toe with them, and you get all the way until the end when your client needs to make, your potential client needs to make a decision on who's best to go for. That's like going to showdown in poker. And of course, the best hand usually wins. And when you flip over the cards and, you know, it goes one way or another, sometimes the person who doesn't deserve it wins and they get lucky. But that's why people go, oh, it's gambling, because they got lucky and they shouldn't have won that hand, but they somehow got there. Now, of course, this technically is gambling, but isn't that the same in life? Isn't that the same in business? Sometimes, even though you're the better person, they might have done something or they got very lucky and they could still win. This is the problem when it comes to poker and comes to most things in life. I think that I play both chess and poker, right? And there's so much correlation between the two. And people always tell me that chess is so much like business and must be so useful for business. I think it is. I think it's definitely got its pros and cons, and I will definitely cover that in a separate video. But I think that poker is so much more like business and life than chess, because chess is a game of complete information. You know exactly what's going on. Like, you have your pieces, you can see the board, there's no hidden information. If you play better than your opponent and you just don't make any mistakes, you are going to win. That is not the same in business. In business, I could be better than someone else. I could be having better credentials, more experience, even offer a better price point, way better value for money, and just be better in every single way. I could do the perfect pitch and come across amazingly, but somehow I could still not win. Because there's information that I don't know about that is being hidden. I can't process that. Whether it's the opinion of someone or whether it's the fact that my opponent went to school with them or something and they've got like prior arrangements. I don't know what's going on. It could be anything, but I don't have all the information. And that's what it's like in poker. You could still play perfectly and make all the right decisions, but you may not win, because in poker, it's not a game of complete information, just like in business. And which is why I think poker is so good for business. So anyway, I obviously think poker is very much a strategy game. And I only started playing basically a year ago. I joined a boot camp run by PokerStars and Poker Power. And they basically taught us all the fundamentals of poker within just 6 weeks. Was it 8 weeks? I don't remember. Memory needs some work. But yes, it was a very quick boot camp and it just got me so into poker, and I quickly saw all of the incredible skills that I was learning from this boot camp and how I could transfer this to my business. This boot camp was unbelievable. They are, at the end of it, the way they did the final, they basically created a competition, and the top 5 people from that boot camp got to send an all-inclusive package to Cyprus to play in the European Poker Tour. And guess who was one of those 5? So I have been loving this poker journey that I'm on. In fact, I am sitting here in sunny Barcelona at the moment for another European Poker Tour by PokerStars, and I've just been plunging at the deep end, just learning consistently. Obviously, I'm only a year into the journey, so I'm still very much a noob, but every time I sit at that poker table, I learn something new. I learn skills that I are just bringing back to my business and helping other entrepreneurs with their business. So I'm about to show you the top 5 things that I've learned from poker and how it's helped me transform my business. So one of the biggest things I think poker's helped me with is dealing with rejection. Now I know no one likes rejection, whether it's in personal life or in business life, but I don't really think I handled it all that well. I used to beat myself up massively for it, take it super personally, and then just think I was crap at everything and a complete failure at life. Yeah, I know, not healthy at all, but I basically catastrophized any loss or failure. But you know, when you're super competitive at something, this is just a major side effect of it. So when I started playing poker, I'd still do this same thing. Like, I used to get really upset whenever I lost a big hand. Or any hand at all, to be honest. I would be like, oh my God, you're so stupid, Sabrina. What is wrong with you? And of course, there were times when I did make a mistake, and so I could look back at that hand, learn from that mistake, and then try not to do that again. Great. But then there were other times where I played things the right way. I made the right decisions, I did things correctly, and then factors out of my control happened, and I'd lose a hand or I'd get unlucky, right? But I would never see it that way, and I'd just see it as me being stupid. But when you're playing so many hands in poker, you have to snap out of that so quickly. Otherwise, you're gonna let those feelings affect your decisions and you're gonna start making really crappy decisions, and that's when you start making big mistakes. So if you're facing defeat multiple times an hour, it's amazing how quickly you get very resilient. Plus, if you're making all the right decisions and you're doing the right things, what more can you do? That's life, right? Things throw things at you in life and they don't always go your own way, but how you respond to it and how you handle it is in your control. And that's what happens. The market's going to throw up all these conditions that you may not expect, and how you deal with it is what sets you apart. And you know, in business, there's always things that happen. Look at the pandemic, for example. No one expected that, but the businesses who survived that are the ones how they responded to it, and they didn't catastrophize as much. So since I've been playing poker and learning how to deal with this, I've been able to walk away from opportunities that weren't right for me, and also feel not as much fear to put myself out there and put myself in front of all these brands that I never really thought I would have been able to. Think about Knobs, my Entrepreneur Members Club. I only launched it in February this year, which is about 6 months ago. And since then, I've been able to land brand deals with the likes of LinkedIn, Canva, TikTok, and then really cool brands such as like Hilton and Oura Ring. All because I just asked them. Like, I didn't care that I got rejected or would get rejected. I just put myself out there and thought, you don't ask, you don't get. Because I thought about the long term, the bigger picture, and that, like, if I put myself out there, get rejected now, but if I get yeses, then how great is that for my members? And I never would have been able to do that and have that confidence and that resilience to put myself out there and invite that rejection to me if I hadn't have started playing poker. So another related thing that I've learned from poker is the sunk cost fallacy. Now, I've always known what it is, but I've never really been as aware of it as I am now. And so for those of you who don't know what the sunk cost fallacy is, well, a sunk cost is a cost that's already been spent. You know, that you've already invested in something and you know, you can't retrieve those costs. So the sunk cost fallacy is when people make decisions based on the fact they've spent this money, and they sort of justify their decisions because they said, oh, well, we spent that money, so therefore we have to continue doing something. And this is an absolute classic. So in poker, if you've already put chips in a pot and like you're in the middle of a hand and say you've already invested some chips into it, there's this urge to stay in the hand because you've already invested in it. You're like, well, I've already put some money into it now, so I need to see it through to the end. And I see so many people doing this, and they consistently keep betting, even though they think they've got like almost no chance of winning the hand because there's a hope that they might win and they could get their money back. But if you didn't actually invest any chips into that pot in the first place and you still had that same situation, you'd be less likely wanting to actually continue with that and it'd be a much easier fold than it would be if you had invested the money in the first place. So take the same in business. So many people do this because they already invested money in an idea, whether it's a particular idea that they should be pivoting or is that their entire business. Now, if you invested a lot of time and money and energy and emotion into your business, because that's what it is, right? As a business owner, people say it's your baby. You invest a lot of emotion into that as well. And if something's going wrong, and I see this in so many business owners, they are consistently doing something, and I've done it myself. You're going down a business path where it's not right and you should be quitting, but because you're like, I've invested all this time and energy into it, then I don't want to actually, leave because it'd be a waste of time, it'd be a waste of money. That is a sunk cost fallacy at play. And you need to you've already spent that money, you've already spent that time, you've already spent that energy. You're not going to get it back. It shouldn't really be a factor in your decision. You need to look at it separate from that and think, is this still a viable business? Or, you can pivot and that's okay, right? But people do this, I've seen in relationships as well, right? And it's that they're dating the same person they have been for the last 5 years, and they know it's a terrible relationship. They know it's not going to go anywhere. They want to break up with them, but they're like, but that means I've wasted the last 5 years of my life and, it'd be terrible. No, that is the sunk cost fallacy. So our market is so volatile right now. And I have got so many friends and colleagues and, members who are rethinking their businesses, and they are just in this weird space. And that's okay because it is a tricky time, but you cannot let the sunk cost fallacy get into play. So I want anyone who's thinking about whether they should be pivoting their business or changing direction or closing their business down completely and starting again, don't let yourself get attached to all of that stuff that goes on around it, that sunk cost fallacy. Because often when you're financially invested into something, you are also emotionally invested into something too, and that's normal. Which brings me nicely onto the next thing that I've learned from poker. So as I said earlier, I love to get in my own head about things. I definitely portray my own story and think that other people are thinking things about me at the table and be like, oh, they perceive me as weak, so I must play like this, or they think I'm this. And I don't know what they're thinking. I'm just making that stuff up in my own head. We all do this, and you gotta realize you're doing it. And it's about awareness, right? It's about awareness so you can snap yourself out of it. And my emotions definitely get the better of me sometimes. And this is what happened to me in chess. When I used to be a professional chess player, I would definitely get in my own head, and my emotions were probably one of my biggest weaknesses in chess. Like, it would make me knock down my confidence, it would make me hold back on playing certain moves. It's a really bad thing. And I think that there's a lot of this talk about in the gender gap of chess, and people say, why are men so much better than women at chess? And I've got a lot of thoughts on this. It's probably a video for another day, but I do think that that emotions do come into it. It's probably one of the most common reasons that people say that there is that gap, because women are more emotional than men. And I can't speak for other women, but I do think that was definitely the case in me. And I've been doing this in poker, and it's been really, really, really helping me, because the differences in poker, chess is a little bit different because it's a continual game, but with poker, it's been fantastic. Because, for example, if I let myself get emotional and worked up over a particular hand, and then I keep that emotion bottled up and bring it into the next hand, I'm going to affect my play over and over again. But the beauty of poker is that you play so many hands an hour. Once that hand's gone, it's gone. Your next hand is completely new. It should not be affected by what your decision you made in the previous hand. Sure, your stack may be shorter, people might be thinking different things, but essentially those cards in your hand are brand new cards. So you have to stop, reset, reframe your thoughts, and get ready for the new adventure, the new project that has nothing to do with what's happened, and play that all again from scratch. You could end up winning twice as much money as you lost in that previous hand. You never know, right from the next thing, and completely change people's perceptions of you. So you've got to be able to reset it. If you don't do that and you keep basically, going into your own head, you're going to quickly end up in what you call tilt, and you're going to affect your decision making, and you're going to end up doing pretty badly in poker. And this is how I've be able to snap out of it. I've realized the times when I've been emotional about it, and I can reset, go away, have a think. And I think that's what's great about poker as well. You're there, you can sit out a couple of hands, you can just fold, take some time out. And that's the same as in business, right? When something goes wrong, sometimes you don't don't just jump back in and try to play the next hand and go straight back in there. You may want to fold the next few hands, have a break, go for a walk, actually take a holiday, and don't jump straight into the next project. Give yourself, a bit of a reset, give your brain a bit of a rest, let your emotions calm down. And I've been able to translate this from poker into my business now, and I'm able to just manage situations so much better. I think the last thing that poker's really helped me with is budgeting. Naturally, you have to budget your chip stack when you're playing in a poker game. And especially in tournament poker, you have, a set of chips that you're playing with, and how you use them and when you use them is all part of the strategy, which is why I think it's a strategic game. And if you went and chased every opportunity that you think could be profitable, then you're gonna run out of chips very, very quickly. And if you're then putting more chips in it because you've got like a 20% chance of it working out, like that's not a sound business decision, is it? Like if you had something and if you went to an investor and you were like, there's a 20% chance you can make money from this, your investors are gonna say, hell no, right? So why do you do the same thing in poker? All of that stuff really translates to me. And so I realized that actually the budgeting things is really, really good. So now, for example, if I wanna spend money on a marketing spend, I've got really, really analytical, and I actually look at what the ROI could be if I spent money on that. Or actually, could I save those chips and put it on another hand because actually that might be more profitable. Sometimes you get really paid well if you have the patience of waiting for a better hand. Obviously, if you keep waiting and keep waiting and keep waiting, that's also not going to pay off either. So you have to actually work out how to budget for it. And this strategy, especially in tournament poker, I've been realizing has been really, really helping me with budgeting of my business too. As an entrepreneur, it's so easy to go with your gut feel because you're a visionary and you've got all these ideas and you know the industry, so you kind of have a feel of things. But poker's also is going through that at the moment. Like all these old school players are saying that they go with their gut feeling, but then there's now a lot more mathematics around it and people are using formulas to play poker. And I think that actually business has become a lot more like that with the amount of data that's out there and analytics that you can look at. You can get really granular with data and actually make way more informed decisions about whether something's going to be profitable. So now, over the last year, I've been using data to basically make a lot of my decisions. Everything's data backed, which it should be. But I think that if you're like a really ambitious entrepreneur, you kind of go out there and you use your feels and you just kind of do what you think feels natural to you and you make decisions that way. But thanks to poker and the introduction of all this sort of stuff and being able to budget, I've naturally been making much more sound decisions. And as a result, my business has become way more profitable. So it's really clear to see that poker has changed my business life and I just absolutely love it. And there are so many skills that I'm consistently learning. As I said, I'm actually in sunny Barcelona right now playing some poker and I just love it. And I'm doing networking at casinos. So if anyone wants to come play a game with me and we can talk strategy, we can talk business, we could do this over a poker table at a casino, I am always up for that. So just hit me on social media and I will see you in the next video to talk more strategy.